Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it comes from our email, and the message reads like this. Hello my brother, how are you? Can you please post for me my own story? I recently heard this other confession that was about a woman who purchased a very big car. As for me, that is the way that I ended up becoming a ritualist. It was like never my plan to become a ritualist, but after so many failed investments, that was when I saw that I was losing money, and at the rate in which I was losing money, I then found out that if my wife was going to catch me losing all of this money, then it was going to be the end of our relationship. And my wife, she was the one who was financing all of this spending spree that I was going around doing, investing in a lot of different businesses, and all of those businesses, they were not bringing any meaningful returns at all. But as someone who had that entrepreneur spirit, I kept on believing in this dream that one day I was going to hit it big, and on the day that I was going to hit it big, then I would return all the money that I had taken from my wife. So when I saw that nothing was working out, that was when I started playing the lotto and betting a lot. Still, I was losing a lot of money. I was winning, but I was not winning any money that was significant enough for me to return all of the money that I had taken out in my wife's name. It even reached a point whereby sometimes on my own, without the knowledge of my wife, I ended up applying some loans using her name because she was the one who really had a very good credit score. After I had applied all of that money, I then met up with this other long-time friend of mine who came up with this other idea, and he told me that if I would invest into his business, then I will become a millionaire overnight. I took all of that money that I had taken as a loan using my wife's details. Then I invested that money into my friend's dead business. After I had invested into his business, that was when I found out that this was nothing but a pyramid scheme. My brother, I was really heartbroken. I then turned into gambling, and gambling has its own problems. If you gamble, and if you only gamble so that you can make some quick cash, that is when you are going to become addicted. And I became addicted because I kept on losing money over and over again. I even tried to fake a hijacking, but I then saw that I was going to get arrested. So I stopped that plan that I had, which I wanted to lie to my wife that I had been hijacked. All of these plans, my brother, it was so that I could cover up, and I didn't want my wife to know that I had been using her money as well as starting to use some of our savings, because it was part of our retirement savings, and I have been slowly withdrawing from our retirement savings. The day that she found out, my brother, there was a lot of trouble in the home. She threatened to tell her parents, and her parents, they are wealthy people. When she said that she wanted to tell her parents, I asked her if she could only give me a month so that I can make a plan. When I said that she should give me a month so that I can make a plan to return back the money, it was just a plan of a desperate man, because there was no way I was going to get that huge sum of money that I had lost over the course of the whole year. The only plan that I had, my brother, was to turn to juju, to voodoo, and I thought that there I was going to get some money, and after getting that money, and I was going to win back the trust of my beloved wife. I then turned to this other juju priest, and that juju priest promised me heaven and earth. All that I was supposed to bring was my children's pictures as well as my wife's pictures. When I I brought all of those items, he then pulled out this other traditional dish that was filled with money, and he told me that I had to take only a few US dollars and I had to replace the money that I had taken with the picture that belonged to my wife, as well as the picture that belonged to my children. So I did as I had been instructed. After I had taken that money, the man then told me that for 3 days I was not supposed to sleep in the house or underneath any roof. I was supposed to sleep out in the open as if I was an animal. This created a whole lot of problems for me because my wife was thinking that maybe the reason why I had lost all of that money, it was because I had been cheating on her. Even when she complained the first night when I did not return back home, I lied to her that I had gone on this other business trip, and I told her that this was something that contained a lot of illegal dealings. That was why I could not return home quickly. She then said that it is fine, but I hope that you are safe. For those 3 days, my brother, I was just roaming around in the middle of the CBD. When the evening would have arrived, then I would just sleep by the side of the shops on the pavements where all of those homeless people sleep. I was homeless for 3 days, yet I had a loving wife and I had a beautiful family. When the 3 days had gone, that was when I returned back to that juju priest, and he said that he had seen that indeed I had been sleeping outside like a homeless person, and it was time for him to reward me. But the way that he rewarded me is that he gave me this other bag. In our country, we call it a Ghana must go bag, and it was full of money. But this money, my brother, I didn't even understand if it was real money or if it was fake money. The only rule that I was supposed to follow was that I had to hide this money from my wife. She was not supposed to see it, and I had to give it all away. I was not supposed to spend any single cent from that money that he had given me, that had filled up that Ghana must go back bag that he had given me. The money to the strangers in the street, I had to wash my face using that small bucket, and I was not allowed to use the water that was coming out of a tap. He told me that the only water that I had to use was water that I would have taken from a flowing river. So I collected some water and I stored it in my bedroom. When I returned back home, I found a place where I had to hide the money, and I told my wife that since this was an illegal business deal, I was still waiting for my own share. That was when I started the job that I am still doing even up until today, but I am no longer doing it in my country because of some of the rituals that I did after the passing away of my wife and my kids as well. I had to move out of my country and relocate. So at that time, my brother, what I'll do is that early in the morning, I would get out of the house and I was using my wife's car, and I would make sure that I won't spend the money that was in that bag that had been given to me by that juju priest. I would go around giving poor people. I used to target especially poor people. At that time, I didn't even understand the reason as to why I was doing all of those rituals. But as time went by, I then understood what I was doing. For every person that I gave money until the money was finished, it means that all of their blessings, they were coming upon my life, and it was like I was stealing their blessings. So you can just imagine a bag that was loaded with money, how many people that I gave all of that money, how many destinies that I stole from different people, and how many blessings I still have up until today. I have not even yet used a quarter of those blessings that I stole from people, and even right now I am still doing it, but I am now doing it in a different country, forbidden to return back to my own people, because the rules are that if I ever come across anyone that knows me, then I might die. So at that time, when I was still back in my country, when I had given the money to the people that I used to meet, the people that were suffering, especially the homeless people, those were the ones that I was targeting at that time. I I then returned back to that voodoo priest and I showed him that bag, and I showed him that it was indeed empty. That was when he told me that I was going to pick up a huge bag that was filled with money, and that money was the one that I was allowed to use, and I had to go and show it to my wife. The moment that I walked out of his shrine, when I got into my wife's car, I looked around, then I saw that at the back seat there was a huge suitcase that was filled to the brim. It had US dollars. A lot of money was inside that suitcase. When I returned back home, that was when I lied to my wife that I had been given my share of that illegal dealing that I had done for those 3 days that I was not sleeping at home. My wife, she was really excited, but what she didn't understand was that there was nothing to be excited about, because it was all ritual money and nothing else. So after we had counted the money, it was quite a huge sum of money. I then returned back the money that I was owing her. I then paid the bank and some of the money that I had lost at that time when I was doing a lot of investments. My brother, me and my wife, we only enjoyed life for a couple of months after I had done all of these rituals. That was when they had a car accident. They all passed away on the same date. It was my sister-in-law. She was the youngest sister in the family where my wife was born, and all of my kids, they were traveling in the same car. And what happened on that day, my brother? My wife just said that she wanted to buy bread. And instead of her buying bread at this other shop that was close to the house that we were staying at that time, I don't know what entered into her mind. She then chose to drive to town, and on her way back, that was when they had an accident and they all died on the spot. That is how I lost my family in a single day. After I had lost my family at the funeral, I then saw that some of the people that I had met whilst I was at that juju priest shrine, those people, they were at my family's funeral. And they approached me and they told me that soon after the funeral, I was supposed to come and visit the shrine because the priest had some important words that he wanted to tell me. Then they left some charms, and these charms, I had to bury them at my wife's grave as well as my kids' grave. All of those charms, I had to bury them on that same day when we would have buried them. So later in the evening, I then sneaked out of the house and I went back to the graveyard. That is where I buried all of those charms. To my relatives and to my wife's relatives, I pretended as if I was a man that was going through depression and shock and trauma of all the things that had happened to me. So they left me when they saw me driving out, because I just said that I wanted a little bit of peace of mind, but they didn't even know that I had other intentions when I was doing all of this. After that, my brother, that was when I returned back to that shrine. And when I returned back to that shrine, my brother, that was when I was given that rule whereby I was not allowed to stay in my country any further, because if I was going to come across any person that knew me, then I was going to die. So I had to quickly migrate out of my country. That was when I migrated and I went into another country where I am currently staying, and I still do what I do. And that juju priest told me that as long as I give out money to the poor people, then it means that my money, my blessings will never run out. It is only that when I meet someone that knew me previously in my own country, then that is when all of those blessings will dry out. But as I am staying in this country where I am staying, I have made some provisions. If it happens that I come across any person that knew me in the previous life, my brother, I will be left with no choice but to sacrifice. Even if it is said that I need to sacrifice the president, I have to do it so that I can live a little bit longer.